Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a few different preservation projects, mostly dehydrating. So I am so glad that you're here. Come along and join me for the ride. I'm going to start by making beet powder, and I have some beets here that I've just cut the tops off. And I'll zoom you in. I'm going to peel these and then I'm going to slice them super thin on a mandolin. So here are my beets that I got from my local farm share, and I'm just going to cut the tops off, and then I'm going to peel these. Normally when I cook beets, when we're just eating them, I actually just scrub them really well, and then I will cook them with the skins on. But I've decided I'm going to peel these because I'm going to use a couple of them to make beet powder. So just going to go ahead and peel these guys, and then I will come back to you when I finished peeling, and I'm going to slice them on my mandolin, and I'll show you how I do that. Now that I've gotten my beets peeled and my hands are sufficiently stained pink, I'm going to slice these on a mandolin. So this is my little mandolin slicer. It's just a cheap one by OXO, and I'm going to use, this is a cut resistant glove and the little guard. So I'm going to get these as thin as I can, and this blade is very sharp and I don't mess around with it, so just going to make as thin of slices here as I can so that they'll dehydrate evenly. Then I've got a little end bit, but that's all right. I'm going to leave that. And there you go. These are really beautiful, super thin slices. So I'm going to slice all of these up, and then I'll bring you out to my dehydrator, and we will put these on there. I'm just going to go ahead and put these on a plate. Gonna leave my little nubbins behind. I'll eat these later. Probably cut them up a little bit. And then before I leave here, I'm just gonna go ahead and rinse everything off. I find that this makes it much more likely that you're gonna get that pink beet juice. Beet juice stains absolutely everything. And I find if I rinse my cutting board off immediately, I'm much less likely to have a stained pink cutting board. So there we go. I'll meet you guys out at the dehydrator. All right, welcome to my back patio. This is where I have set up my Excalibur dehydrator, and I'll show you what I have in it so far. So this morning I went out and picked a few different herbs. I have oregano in here. I've got a few trays of oregano and a few trays of sage. So those are all in here already. And for the oregano, I'm just going to leave it on the stem, and then when the leaves are nice and crisp and dry, I'll just pull them back off of the stem. I think it's just easier to keep everything together. So I have 2.5 trays of sage, and I have 3.5 trays of oregano. And now I'm going to fill the rest of this up with beets. So I'm going to go ahead and take my beets, and I'm going to make a nice thin single layer here. And this will probably stain my trays, but that's okay. They're going to get stained at some point anyway, so might as well be today. And I have this on my back patio on just a picnic table, so that I can keep the heat outside of the house. You know, it's summer here, and if I can keep the heat of the dehydrator outside, that's much better. We also don't really have a very good place for this to be in the house, and it's not super noisy, but it's not silent, certainly. So it's like the fan's going all the time, and this is probably going to have to go for 12 plus hours. So, it's just not that pleasant to have the fan going in your living space. Also, it does emit some smell, and so I don't really need the entire house to smell like beets and oregano. And I'm making this beetroot powder today for a couple reasons. One is that it's the powder is very nutritious. It's one way to preserve these beets. But another thing is these red beets make the powder is very brightly colored, and so it makes a good natural colorant, and that's really good for making. My husband and I eat a plant-based diet, so if we're making some kind of meat substitute, I like to make my own homemade seitan chicken. You can use the beetroot powder not only for that kind of iron flavor that you get in meat, but also the color. This beautiful red color makes it look more like regular meat. So that's why we're making this today, and I think it'll just be fun to have in the pantry. Something that'll add a beautiful bright red color. Alright, so now I'm going to set my dehydrator. This Excalibur dehydrator is great because it has the drying guide on here. So I have herbs and vegetables in here. So you would normally do vegetables at 125. I'm going to start at 105 for the herbs. Once the herbs are done, I'm going to pull those out, and then I'll raise the temperature for the beets to 125. The herbs don't take all that long to dehydrate. They'll probably be done in like 6-ish hours. So once those are done, then I'll turn it up. So now that you can hear my dehydrator going, let's go inside and I will show you my next project for the day. Alright, my next task for the day is dealing with this huge pile of leaves. These just look like regular leaves to most people, but this is actually mountain mint. It is an edible type of mint that grows wild here. It's native to Virginia, kind of the Appalachia region, probably plenty of other places. But it grows all over the place in my yard. It grows like a weed. And this is actually a bunch that I pulled out because it was growing into my garden beds. So I figured I might as well use this. You can see it browns really quickly as soon as you pick it, so you kind of have to deal with it immediately. What I'm planning on doing, it has a mint flavor. It does taste like mint, and it smells incredible, but it's not as strong of a mint flavor as like a spearmint or a peppermint. So you kind of need a lot of it to get what you want. So I'm going to make two things with this. I'm going to make a mint simple syrup and a mint extract. So for the extract, I just have a jar. This is not a canning jar. This is like I think I bought like nuts or mayonnaise or something in this. And I'm just going to take the leaves, which I've washed and dried, and I'm just going to shove as many as I can in this jar. Usually mint extract recipes online say kind of a 1-to-1 mint, 1 part mint to 1 part alcohol ratio. As I said, this is not quite as strong as commercial or like peppermint or anything like that. So I'm just going to kind of pack this all in, and then we can see in a few months if this has worked. So I'll put a little bit more in there. And I like really strong pepper. I love mint. I think it's such a great flavor, and so I like it strong. So I'm going to go ahead and pack that in. I'm going to move the rest of this aside to use in our simple syrup. And then I'm just going to muddle this down a little bit. So I've got my pestle from my mortar and pestle. I'm just going to muddle this a little bit to try and release some of those oils. Now that this jar smells nice and strong, I'm just going to go ahead and pour in vodka to cover. And I'm going to use my little debubbling tool. I'm going to try and get any bubbles out of here that I can. I don't want any air trapped in here because that could cause it to mold. So I'm just going to go ahead, and you can see how much air was trapped in there, so I'm going to need to fill fill this again. Now that I've got most of, I think hopefully all, if not most of the air bubbles out, I'm just going to go ahead and try and press this down so that all of the leaves are under the liquid level. So I'm going to lid this, I'm going to go ahead and label it with today's date, and then I'm going to put it in my pantry to sit for probably 3 months. At that point, I'll take it out and taste it and see how it goes, and maybe leave it in for a little longer. We'll see. So my last project with this mint is going to be a mint simple syrup. So this is the jar I'm going to store it in. So I measured out kind of how much water I thought, or how, full I wanted this jar to be. This is about 1.5 cups of water. And then I'm going to do an equal part of sugar. So that would be 1.5 cups of sugar. And I just leave a 1/2 cup measurement in this container at all times. And that just makes my life easy. I don't have to clean as much. Go ahead and leave that in there. And I'm just going to go ahead and stir this up, and I'm going to bring it on the stove and bring it to a simmer. Hi everyone, it's the next day and I'm back to my dehydration project. I've got my trays out of the dehydrator, and I'm going to start with the oregano. You can see it's dried on the stem really nicely, and it powders really easily. It's super dry, and so that's what you want. So I just have a little container here and a funnel, and I'm just taking all the leaves and just peeling them off the stems and putting them in here. It kind of keeps the mess down. I have a clean dish towel underneath here in case I drop any little bits. I can just get them into my container afterward. And then once you've kind of done all of this, you can take your little leaves and you can powder them using a spice grinder. I kind of like them, at least for oregano, in somewhat larger bits. So once they're all in here, I'm just going to go in and kind of crunch them up with my hands, and it's so dry that it's really easy to do. Next thing I'm going to work on is sage, and here are my sage leaves, and you can see they're totally dry and brittle. And I'm just going to take them off of the And these were in the dehydrator for about 6 hours, and then I took them out once they were totally brittle and totally dry. And then I turned my dehydrator up. Once the herbs were totally dry, I took them out of the dehydrator, and then I turned the dehydrator up to 125 degrees and left the beet chips in there so that they would totally dehydrate. And so here is a whole tray of these little beet chips, and they're also super brittle and dry, so I know they've dehydrated fully. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in this slightly larger jar. So there we go, some beautiful dehydrated oregano, sage, and beet chips. Thank you all so much for watching my videos. I hope you enjoyed joining me on this little preservation project, and I will see you again soon in another video. Bye!